Madison and Fiona were sisters. Madison was the first daughter. She was tall, pretty, and liked to dress well. People always looked at her when she walked by. But Madison had a sharp tongue. She said whatever was on her mind, even if it hurt someone. She didn't care. Fiona was the second daughter. She was not as flashy as Madison, but her smile was soft and warm. She was kind to everyone. She helped neighbors carry heavy bags, and she listened when people wanted to talk. Growing up, people always said, "Madison, you will marry a rich man one day. Fiona, you will make a good wife one day." Made Fiona happy at first. But as they got older, something strange happened. Men always chased Madison, even though she was mean to them. She could get angry at a man in public, and he would still call her the next day. Fiona, who knew how to make a man feel special, never had men chase her. She would cook for them, listen to them, and be nice. But they never stayed. This made her sad, though she never said it out loud. Madison and Fiona's mother, Margaret, loved them both. But she often said, "Fiona, learn to be more confident. Madison, learn to be kind." Madison didn't listen. She believed life was too short to worry about people's feelings. Fiona listened but didn't know how to change her luck. One day, Madison called home with big news. "I'm getting married," she told her mother. The wedding was beautiful. Madison's husband, Ethan, was a gentle man with a calm voice. He treated Madison like a queen. Everyone thought Madison had found her happy ending. But Fiona noticed something on the wedding day. Ethan looked at Madison like she was the most important person in the world, but Madison didn't look back the same way. Madison smiled for the pictures, laughed with her friends, but hardly looked at her husband. Fiona thought it was strange, but she kept quiet. Years later, Madison had her first baby, a baby boy. Margaret wanted to go for postpartum care to help her daughter. But Margaret's health was not strong anymore. Her knees hurt and she got tired easily. So one evening, Margaret called Fiona to her room. "My daughter," Margaret said softly, "I want you to go and help Madison with the baby. She will need you. Please do this for me." Fiona agreed. She didn't know that this one decision would change her life forever. Fiona packed her bag the next morning. She put in a few dresses, her nightgown, and the new slippers her mother had bought her. She also packed a small Bible, because she liked reading it before bed. Margaret sat on the edge of the bed watching her. "Remember, Fiona," she said, "Madison can be difficult, but she is your sister. Help her and help the baby." Fiona nodded. "I will, Mama." It was a 4-hour bus ride to Madison's location. When Fiona arrived, she was surprised. The house was big, with white walls and shiny windows. A small garden was in front, full of flowers. It looked like the kind of house she had seen in magazines. Ethan opened the door when she knocked. He smiled warmly. "Fiona, we're here. Please come in." He helped her carry her bag inside. His voice was soft, the kind that made people feel safe. Inside, the smell of baby powder filled the air. Madison was sitting on the couch, holding the baby in one hand and scrolling on her phone with the other. She looked up and said, "Oh, you came." "Yes, Mama asked me to help you," Fiona said with a smile. Madison shrugged. "Well, help is good. I'm tired." Fiona walked to her and looked at the baby boy. He was so tiny, wrapped in a soft blue blanket. His little mouth opened and closed as he slept. "He's beautiful," Fiona whispered. "Of course he is," Madison replied quickly. "He looks like me." For the first few days, Fiona worked hard. She washed the baby's clothes, cooked meals, and cleaned the kitchen. Ethan often helped her. He would carry the baby when Fiona was cooking or fetch water when she was bathing him. Fiona began to notice something. Madison hardly touched the baby unless it was time to take pictures for her social media. She didn't cook for Ethan. She didn't ask him how his day was. Sometimes she even spoke to him in a sharp tone. One evening, Ethan came home late from work. He looked tired. "Why are you late?" Madison asked without looking up from her phone. "There was traffic," Ethan said gently. Well, next time leave work earlier. I'm not here to wait all night for you, she replied. Then she walked away, leaving him standing there. Fiona felt a knot in her chest. She wanted to say something, but she didn't want to cause trouble. That night, Fiona went to the kitchen for water. She found Ethan sitting alone at the table, his head in his hands. Are you okay? Fiona asked softly. He looked up and smiled faintly. I'm fine. Just tired. Maybe you should rest, she said. I will, he replied, but his eyes looked sad. From that night on, Fiona began to see Ethan in a different light. He wasn't just her sister's husband. He was a man who was lonely in his own home. She didn't know that her sympathy for him would soon open a door she could never close again. The days passed slowly in Madison's house. Fiona woke early each morning. She would sweep the living room, make tea for herself, and then check on the baby. Most times, Ethan had already fed him during the night because Madison liked to sleep without disturbance. Fiona often wondered why Madison seemed so distant from her own child. One morning, as Fiona was folding the baby's clothes, she heard Madison talking loudly on the phone. I told you not to call me at this time, Madison snapped. The person on the other end said something Fiona couldn't hear. Look, I don't care. I'm married, yes, but that doesn't mean I can't have friends. Stop acting jealous. Fiona froze. Who was Madison talking to? Was it a man? She shook her head and tried to mind her business, but her heart felt heavy. That afternoon, Ethan came home early. Fiona was in the kitchen making rice and vegetable sauce. The baby was sleeping in his cradle. Madison was in the bedroom, probably still on her phone. Ethan leaned on the kitchen doorway. Something smells good, he said with a small smile. Fiona laughed. It's just rice and vegetables. Nothing special. It smells better than anything I've eaten in weeks, he replied. Fiona looked at him. Doesn't Madison cook for you? He hesitated before answering. She used to, before the baby. Now she says she's too tired. But you help with the baby, Fiona said softly. I try, Ethan replied, his voice quiet. But sometimes I feel invisible. Fiona didn't know what to say. She stirred the pot slowly, feeling the weight of his words. Later that week, Margaret called Fiona. Her voice was weak but happy to hear from her. My daughter, how is Madison? She's fine, Fiona said, not wanting to worry her mother. And the baby? He's healthy and growing, Fiona replied. Margaret sighed. Good. Fiona, remember, Madison is your sister. If she does wrong, talk to her. If she ignores you, be patient. Don't let anger grow between you. Fiona promised she would try. But it wasn't easy. One evening, Ethan came home with a gift bag. Inside was a small gold bracelet for the baby. It's beautiful, Fiona said as she looked at it. When Madison saw the bracelet, she frowned. Why waste money on this? The baby doesn't care about gold. It's for memories, Ethan said gently. Memories don't feed anyone, Madison replied coldly and walked away. Ethan stood still for a moment, then left the bracelet on the table and went upstairs. Fiona picked it up and felt a sting in her heart. She couldn't understand how her sister could be so cold to a man who cared so much. And somewhere, deep inside her, Fiona began to feel something she wasn't ready to admit. It was a quiet Saturday morning. The sun was warm, shining through the curtains in the living room. The baby was sleeping in his cradle, and Fiona sat on the couch knitting a small blue sweater. Ethan came down the stairs wearing a white t-shirt and dark jeans. His hair was a little messy, and there was a light smile on his face. You're up early, Fiona said. I'm always up early, Ethan replied. It's the only time I get peace before the day starts. Fiona laughed softly. Peace is hard to find with a newborn. Yes, he said, glancing at the baby. But it's worth it. That morning, Madison was still asleep. She had gone out the night before to meet some friends and came back late. Ethan didn't complain, but Fiona noticed the way his smile faded when he looked at the closed bedroom door. Have you eaten breakfast? Fiona asked. Not yet, Ethan said. I was going to make toast. I can make something better than toast, Fiona said, standing up. She went into the kitchen and made scrambled eggs, fried plantain and tea. When she brought the food out, Ethan's eyes lit up. This looks amazing, he said. It's nothing, Fiona replied. Just simple food. They ate together at the table. For the first time they really talked. Ethan told her about his small shop in the city, how he worked hard to grow it, and how he dreamed of opening another branch. Fiona shared how she once wanted to start a small baking business but didn't have the money. I like baking too, Ethan said, smiling. Maybe one day you'll bake something for me. Fiona smiled back. Maybe I will. Later that afternoon, Madison came down and saw them laughing over a joke. What's so funny? She asked in a sharp voice. Nothing, Fiona said quickly. Must be something, Madison said, looking from Fiona to Ethan. Anyway, I'm going out again. Don't wait for me to eat. When Madison left, the house became quiet again. Ethan sighed. She's been different since the baby came. Sometimes I don't even recognize her. She's just tired, Fiona said gently, though she wasn't sure she believed it. Ethan looked at her for a moment. His eyes soft. You're a good person, Fiona. You have a kind heart. Fiona felt her cheeks grow warm. She looked away quickly, pretending to adjust the baby's blanket. But deep inside something had started. A small, dangerous feeling she didn't know how to stop. It had been 2 weeks since Fiona arrived at Madison's house. In that time, she had learned the small rhythms of the home. She knew Ethan liked his tea with 1 spoon of sugar and a drop of milk. She knew the baby liked to be rocked to sleep with a gentle hum. She also knew Madison spent more time outside than inside, even though she had a newborn. Most evenings, Madison would go out with her friends. I need to breathe, she always said. I can't just sit here like a housewife. Ethan never argued. He would just say, all right, be careful. Fiona didn't understand how Ethan could be so calm. If it were her husband, she would want to talk, to spend time together, to care for him. One rainy night, Madison left the house early, saying she was meeting some people for dinner. The rain grew heavy, and thunder rolled in the sky. Fiona was in the living room, rocking the baby, when Ethan came in from work. His shirt was wet at the shoulders. You're soaked, Fiona said. It's fine, Ethan replied, smiling faintly. I like the rain. But you'll catch a cold, Fiona said quickly. Wait, I'll get you a towel. She came back with a soft towel and handed it to him. He began drying his hair. She noticed his hands were cold. You should change your shirt, she said. I'll warm some tea for you. While she boiled water, Ethan stood in the kitchen doorway watching her. You remind me of my mother, he said. She used to care for everyone in the house. It's been a long time since someone worried about me like this. Fiona paused, her hand on the kettle handle. You have Madison, she said softly. Ethan didn't answer. After tea they sat on the couch. The baby was asleep in his cradle beside them. Outside, the rain tapped gently against the windows. Do you ever feel invisible? Ethan asked suddenly. Fiona turned to look at him. What do you mean? Like you give everything to someone, but they don't even see you? His voice was low. Fiona's heart ached at his words. I know that feeling, she admitted. Their eyes met. For a moment neither spoke. The air between them felt heavy. Fiona's pulse quickened, but she looked away and picked up the baby's blanket. The next morning, Fiona made breakfast early. Pancakes with honey. She placed a plate for Ethan before he went to work. This is for you, she said. He smiled. You'll spoil me. You deserve it, she replied without thinking. As he left for work, Fiona caught herself watching him walk away. She quickly looked down, scolding herself. He's your sister's husband, she thought. Don't be foolish. But that night, when Madison came home late smelling of perfume that wasn't hers, Fiona's mind kept drifting back to Ethan's tired eyes, and the way they softened when he looked at her. 2 days later, Fiona went outside to hang the baby's clothes. Mrs. Ivy, the neighbor, waved at her from across the fence. "Your sister's husband is a good man," Mrs. Ivy said. "Always polite. I see him carrying the baby sometimes when you're out there. Not every man does that." Fiona smiled awkwardly. "Yes, he's good." Mrs. Ivy's eyes narrowed slightly. "I hope Madison knows what she has." Fiona didn't reply. But inside the words echoed. "I hope she knows what she has." That evening, Madison returned from another outing. She tossed her bag on the couch. "Ethan, there's no dinner?" she asked, frowning. "I didn't know you'd be back," Ethan said. "And Fiona already ate. So you two eat together now?" Madison's voice had a sharp edge. The silence that followed was heavy. Fiona could feel Madison's eyes on her, but she kept her head down. She didn't know if it was guilt or something else entirely. It was a Wednesday morning. The baby had just fallen asleep when Madison came down the stairs in a fitted blue dress and high heels. She had done her makeup and styled her hair, even though it was only 10 a.m. "You're going out?" Ethan asked from the dining table, where he was checking some papers. "Yes," Madison said, adjusting her earrings. "I have a meeting." "What meeting?" Ethan's voice was calm but curious. "A business meeting," she replied quickly. "Someone wants to invest in an online store I'm starting." Fiona, who was folding the baby's clothes nearby, glanced up. She had never heard Madison talk about any store before. Ethan frowned. "Why didn't you tell me about this before?" Madison sighed loudly, like she was tired of explaining. "Because I know how you are. You'll ask too many questions and make it boring. Just trust me. After this meeting, big money will come in." Ethan leaned back in his chair. "All right. Just be careful." "I'm not a child, Ethan," she said sharply, picking up her purse. "I'll be back later." When the door closed, Fiona felt the silence in the room grow heavy. That evening, Madison returned, her face glowing with fake excitement. She dropped her bag on the couch and said loudly, "Ethan, the meeting was amazing. The investor loves my idea. We'll sign papers soon. I could be making millions by next year." Ethan smiled faintly. "That's good news. What's the investor's name?" Madison waved her hand like it wasn't important. "Just a friend of a friend. Don't worry about it." She went upstairs humming, leaving Ethan alone at the table. Fiona noticed his smile had already faded. Later that night, Fiona woke up thirsty. She stepped out of her room and heard voices coming from Madison's bedroom. The door was slightly open. She heard Madison laughing on the phone. "Oh please, Ethan believes everything I tell him," Madison said between giggles. "I just say business meeting, and he nods like a good little husband. He doesn't know I'm meeting real people who matter. Not boring men like him." Fiona froze. Her chest tightened. She wanted to step in and tell Madison to stop talking like that, but her feet wouldn't move. The next evening, Ethan was in the backyard, fixing a loose hinge on the baby's stroller. Fiona went out to give him a bottle of cold water. "Thanks," he said, taking a sip. She hesitated, then asked softly, "Ethan, do you trust Madison?" He looked at her, his eyes tired. "I want to. Try to. But sometimes, I don't know." She wanted to tell him what she had heard, but the words stayed trapped in her throat. Instead, she said, "You deserve someone who talks to you with respect." He didn't reply, but the way he looked at her in that moment felt like he was hearing more than her words. And for the first time, Fiona realized something. She wasn't just feeling sorry for Ethan anymore. She was starting to care for him, in a way she shouldn't. Started with something small. Ethan came home early one Friday evening, carrying a small cake box. He set it on the dining table. "I thought we could have dessert together," he said with a smile. "It's been a while since we all sat down as a family." Madison walked in from the hallway, still on her phone. She glanced at the cake. "What's this for?" "Nothing special. Just us," Ethan replied. Madison rolled her eyes. Ethan, you know I'm watching my weight. And Fiona doesn't even eat cake. I do, Fiona said quietly from the kitchen doorway, but Madison ignored her. Ethan's smile faded. It's not about the cake, Madison. It's about spending time together. Then talk to me when I'm not busy, she said, her tone sharp. Ethan's voice grew tight. Busy doing what? You've been out almost every evening this week. You come home late. You don't even ask how my day was. Madison's eyes narrowed. Oh, so now I'm a bad wife because I don't sit here waiting for you like some house pet? That's not what I said, Ethan replied, trying to stay calm. You're always complaining, Ethan. Maybe if you made life more exciting, I'd want to be here more. The silence that followed was like a slap. Fiona's hands trembled as she dried a plate. Ethan's voice was lower now. Madison, do you even love me? Madison laughed without humor. We're married, aren't we? That should be enough. She grabbed her purse and walked out, the front door slamming behind her. Fiona waited a moment before stepping into the living room. Ethan was sitting at the table, staring at the untouched cake. His hands were clenched. I'm sorry, she said softly. He shook his head. It's not your fault. I know, but it still hurts to watch. For a moment, Ethan said nothing. Then his voice cracked just slightly. I just want her to see me. Not for the money I bring home. Not for what I can buy. Just me. Fiona's heart tightened. She walked closer and placed her hand gently on his shoulder. You are worth seeing, she whispered. He looked up at her. His eyes were glassy, the kind of look someone has when they've been holding pain in for too long. Without thinking, Fiona squeezed his shoulder, and he covered her hand with his. It was only a few seconds, but in those seconds the air between them changed. They didn't speak after that. Fiona quietly packed the cake into the fridge. Ethan went to the backyard and sat alone for a while. That night, Fiona lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. She could still feel the warmth of his hand on hers. She told herself it was just comfort, nothing more. But deep down she knew that was a lie. The night Madison didn't come home was the night everything changed. She had left in the afternoon, wearing a red dress and saying she had a late business dinner. Ethan didn't question her. Fiona could see in his eyes that he had stopped expecting answers. By 10 p.m., the house was quiet except for the sound of the baby breathing in his crib. Fiona was in the living room, watching an old movie on low volume. She wasn't really watching. Her mind kept wandering to Ethan. The back door creaked open. Ethan stepped in from outside. His shirt sleeves rolled up, his hair slightly messy. Still awake? He asked softly. Yes, Fiona said. Couldn't sleep. Me neither, he replied, sitting on the couch beside her. For a while they watched the movie without speaking. Then Ethan sighed. Do you ever feel like you're living in a house but you're not really home? Fiona turned to him. Yes, I've felt that way before. He looked at her, his eyes searching. It's strange. I feel like you understand me better than anyone else right now. Fiona's chest tightened. Maybe because I'm actually listening. They both smiled faintly. But the smile faded quickly. The space between them felt warmer, heavier. Fiona could hear her own heartbeat. Ethan's hand rested on the couch cushion close to hers. Slowly, too slowly to call it an accident, his fingers brushed against hers. Fiona's breath caught. She didn't move away. Their fingers touched again, this time holding for a moment longer. I shouldn't, Ethan whispered. I know, Fiona said, her voice barely a breath. But neither of them moved. Ethan turned slightly toward her. The look in his eyes made Fiona's stomach twist, not with fear, but with something she couldn't name. And then, without warning, his hand cupped her face, warm and steady. Fiona froze for a split second, then his lips touched hers. It wasn't soft. It was hungry, like both of them had been holding something back for too long. Fiona's mind screamed stop, but her body leaned closer. The kiss deepened. His other hand slid to her waist, pulling her nearer. "I can't," Fiona murmured against his lips, but she didn't pull away. "I know," Ethan whispered back, his voice low and rough. When his mouth moved to her neck, Fiona's hands gripped his shirt. She could smell him, a mix of rain from earlier and something warm like cedarwood. The movie kept playing in the background, but neither of them heard it. The world had shrunk to just the two of them, their breathing quick and uneven. It didn't last long, maybe a few minutes, but when Fiona finally pulled back, her heart was racing. "This can't happen again," she said quickly, her voice shaking. Ethan nodded slowly, but his eyes told a different story. "I don't think I can forget it," he said quietly. Fiona stood, almost stumbling as she walked toward her room. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, trying to catch her breath. She pressed her fingers to her lips. It had happened, and deep down, she knew it wouldn't be the last time. The kiss had changed everything. In the days that followed, Fiona and Ethan didn't speak about it, but it was always there. In the way their eyes met, in the way silence seemed louder when they were alone. Madison kept going out for her so-called business meetings. She would return late, sometimes past midnight, smelling of strong perfume and pretending to be too tired to talk. Fiona told herself she was only there to help with the baby. That was the truth she wanted to believe. But every time Ethan walked into a room, her heart reminded her there was another truth, a dangerous one. It was a rainy Friday night. Madison had left the house hours ago in a short silver dress, claiming she had an urgent dinner with her investor. By 8 p.m. the rain was falling hard. The baby was asleep. Fiona sat in the living room reading a book when the front door opened. Ethan walked in, dripping wet. His shirt clung to his chest, and his hair was plastered to his forehead. "You're soaked," Fiona said, standing quickly. "It started raining just before I got home," Ethan said, smiling faintly. Fiona hurried to get a towel. She handed it to him, but he didn't take it right away. Instead, his eyes lingered on her face, as though he wanted to say something but couldn't. "Are you cold?" she asked. "A little," he replied. Without thinking, she touched his arm, feeling the chill of his wet shirt. "You should change," she said softly. He nodded but didn't move. Instead, he stepped closer, so close she could feel the heat of his breath. "Fiona." His voice was low, almost a whisper. "I can't stop thinking about that night." Fiona's pulse quickened. "We said it wouldn't happen again." "I know," Ethan said, his hand brushing against hers. "But I can't stop wanting it to." Her breath caught. She should have stepped back. She should have walked away. But she didn't. Ethan's hands moved to her waist. Slowly, carefully, as if giving her time to push him away. He didn't. When his lips found hers, the kiss was deeper than the first. Slower, heavier, full of something they had both been hiding. Fiona's fingers curled into his shirt, feeling the damp fabric under her hands. He pulled her closer, and the world outside, the rain, the thunder, disappeared. The only sound she could hear was the uneven rhythm of their breathing. When Ethan's hand slid up her back, Fiona shivered. His touch was warm and steady, but her mind was spinning. "We shouldn't," she whispered against his lips. "I know," he said. "But right now I don't care." They moved to the couch without speaking. The book Fiona had been reading fell to the floor. His hands explored her like he had been memorizing her in his mind for weeks. Fiona's heart pounded. She knew every second made it harder to stop. Her body ached with both desire and guilt. When Ethan kissed her neck, her breath hitched. She tilted her head without thinking, letting him in. His fingers slid through her hair. Her own hands roamed over the broad line of his shoulders. The storm outside grew louder, but inside, the air felt even more charged. When it was over, they sat in silence. Ethan's hand was still holding hers, their fingers tangled together. Neither spoke. Neither moved. Finally, Fiona stood, her legs unsteady. She looked at him. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were soft, almost sad. "I have to go to my room," she said quietly. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, her heart pounding. She had crossed a line she could never uncross. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if she regretted it, or wanted it again. The next morning, Fiona woke up to the sound of rain still tapping against the window. Her body felt heavy, her mind foggy. For a moment, she almost forgot what had happened the night before. But then the memory came back. Ethan's hands, his mouth, the way she didn't want to stop. She sat up, pressing her face into her hands. What have I done? When she stepped into the kitchen, Ethan was already there, making coffee. He looked up at her, their eyes locking for just a heartbeat before he looked away. "Morning," he said, his voice low. "Morning," she replied, trying to sound casual. Neither of them mentioned it. They spoke about the weather, about the baby, about nothing important at all. But the air between them was thick, almost hard to breathe in. Every time their hands brushed when passing a cup or plate, Fiona felt a spark, the same spark she had felt the night before. Just after noon, the sound of high heels clicked across the living room floor. Madison was back, wearing dark sunglasses even though it was cloudy outside. "Hope I didn't miss much," she said cheerfully, pulling off her coat. "No," Ethan said quickly. "Everything's fine." Fiona busied herself with wiping the kitchen counter, avoiding eye contact. Madison came over and kissed her husband on the cheek. A quick, careless kiss that felt more like a performance than affection. Then she turned to Fiona. "How's my little boy? Was he good?" "Perfect," Fiona said, forcing a smile. For the next few days, life moved in strange rhythm. Fiona and Ethan avoided being alone together for too long, but sometimes it happened by accident. A brief touch when passing in the hallway. A shared smile when the baby did something cute. A glance that lasted half a second too long. Each small moment reminded them of what they'd done, and how easily it could happen again. One evening, while Madison was on the phone in another room, Mrs. Ivy came over to check on the baby. Fiona noticed the older woman's sharp eyes scanning her and Ethan. She felt as though Mrs. Ivy could see something invisible in the air. "You look tired, Fiona," Mrs. Ivy said. "Just busy with the baby," Fiona replied quickly. But Mrs. Ivy's gaze lingered a moment longer than necessary, and Fiona's heart skipped. 2 days later, Madison left for another meeting. Fiona was in the baby's room, rocking him to sleep, when Ethan came in. "Just wanted to check if you're okay," he whispered. She nodded, but her eyes met his, and the quiet between them was dangerous. He stepped closer, just enough for her to feel his warmth, and then, the sound of keys at the door. They jumped apart instantly. Did Madison find out what she had set to discover? And what happened between Ethan and Fiona as Madison set her traps? Find out in the next part of this true love story. This is Love Tales by Mars Quad, where every heartbeat tells a story. Until our next tale, keep believing in love. In a world full of heartbreaks, there are still stories that can make you believe in love again. Stories that make you smile, cry, and dream all at once. If you love stories that stay with you long after they end, hit the subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and join our growing family of love story fans. Your next favorite tale is just one click away.